Welcome to PhD&D on YouTube. What's up, everyone? This is a video about inspiration and not the rule mechanic in D&D 5th edition. So if you're here for that, I'm sorry, but stick around because this is about inspiration for your D&D campaign, the first step in world building. So welcome to the long-awaited, long-promised world building series on PhD&D. Well, a revised one at least. I mean, I did one before, but I'm always revising things. Anyways, your first step in world building is to get inspired. Now, if you are here to learn about world building and you want to world build, then you're probably already on your way to being inspired. But you need to look to a great number of different sources for inspiration. You can't just focus in on one or two things. Take ideas from everywhere and make them your own for your world. There's not a lot of advice that I can give on how to become inspired. Just look for things that you like, that you think would work well in your game. So instead of sitting here and rambling off a bunch of sort of advice about how to get inspired, I'm just going to show you what inspires me and some of the resources, some of the video games, movies, TV shows, books, some of those things that actually inspire me and that I've used in my own world building. We're going to get started by looking at some of the TV shows and movies that have recently inspired me. Now, there are tons and tons of movies and tons of TV shows that have inspired me over the years, so I've just picked a select few to give you an example of what I've been using. Dragon Ball Z. Now, I grabbed season 4 here. Now, I love the entire TV show. It's awesome that it's actually coming back, but this is a prime example of a big source of inspiration for me on creating NPCs, as you've seen in my NPC All-Star series, but also for storylines and just all around interesting characters. Next up is actually a Bruce Lee film, Enter the Dragon. Now, this fantastic story, fantastic martial arts, everything about this was inspiring to me. The Dungeons & Dragons, the animated series, all 27 episodes. What I actually do with this, and I've mentioned this before on forums, is I actually like to, on Saturday mornings, when I can, turn this on and watch an episode right when I get up. Reminds me of being a kid and watching cartoons on Saturday mornings. Next up is a movie that some people like, some people don't. I really like it, Cloud Atlas. Now, I have the book. I have not read the book yet. But this movie, just the interesting characters and the way they interweaved a lot of those stories, this really appealed to me, and I've used some of the groups of people, some of the cultures in here to inspire my very own game. If you've seen it, this shouldn't be a spoiler at all, but there's a tribe that, well, this guy's from right here, and they have a certain dialect, a certain way they speak, and it's really, really interesting. And so I've really relied heavily on Cloud Atlas. Next up is the ever-classic Princess Bride. Nothing more needs to be said. Stardust. With the rising popularity of the Netflix Daredevil series, for those of you that didn't know, he was in a movie called Stardust, along with Robert De Niro and some others. This is a very, very fun fantasy movie, and I used a lot of names to inspire me out of this one. If you've not seen Stardust, see it. It's well worth it. It's a very fun time. So let's move on and look at some of the video games that actually inspire me now. Recently, Destiny. Destiny has been a big inspiration just in the way of stories, characters, yes, all that, but just kind of the layout of how this game works, returning to kind of a home base, being able to engage, turn things in, upgrade things. Those types of things have made their way into my upcoming campaign, and I thank Destiny big time for that inspiration. We have Fable 3. Haven't played this one in quite a while, but when it came out, it was one of the biggest inspirations for me. I actually finished Fable 3 right before I really got into D&D, and so it was a really good transition, and I've used a lot of the ideas from this, and the setting in this game, to me, is very, very inspiring. This game I have not finished. A friend actually bought it for me because he wanted me to play it, and I do, but I don't have the patience combined with the time right now. So, Dark Souls. He got this for me. What I have played, which is very, very little, I really like, I want to say the story, but there's not much of a story right away. At least you don't figure it out. But I kind of like that. I like the mixture of that dark setting, not really knowing much of what's going on. So Dark Souls has been an inspiration, and it is a villain that I need to go back and defeat. Skyrim. Skyrim, one of the biggest sources of inspiration on how a setting should feel. How when you go to these different towns, you know, how they're laid out. Travel in this game is such a big inspiration. The music and the scenery, looking up at, you know, the sky, the mountains, the wilderness. This has been probably the biggest source of inspiration in my D&D life. So for those of you that have not played Skyrim, just do it. Reckoning. I talk about this one a lot. My newest setting, Candelure, is heavily inspired by the game Reckoning, by the setting, by sort of the story, and a lot of the characters in this. So Reckoning is a very fun game for those of you that are really into video games. The best part about it is probably the combat, but that's all the further. I'm not going to sit here and review it. Big source of inspiration for me. Now next up, its own category, and I'm just going to go over it very quickly, but many of you play Magic the Gathering. I just started recently playing. Now, the images, on the cards are one of the biggest inspirations for me. If you have not already seen a video, I'm going to link you to some different videos and resources throughout this series. Consider it like this is your class, and I'm telling you what to read in your textbook. So your first textbook assignment for world building, go straight over to A Fistful of Dice, link in the description, or if I can annotate somewhere. His video on using Magic the Gathering cards to write adventures is fantastic. So that is your first reading assignment. No, there will be no homework. Just go watch it. It's worth it. Now, really quickly, I'm going to go over some of the best books that inspire me, and then a quick bookshelf tour of the rest of the books that are on there, as far as like the fantasy, sci-fi genre stuff. So the first one, another link in the description, Elminster's Guide to the Forgotten Realms. Go down, watch the video where I talk more about this, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on it here. Big inspiration and big how-to with a lot of world building. And this is the world of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. This book is going to go through and actually lay out the setting, talk about history, you know, the breaking of the world. It's got just a ton of good stuff, good artwork. Very inspiring, but also shows you how to lay out and describe your world, what things to talk about, what things do you build in world building. Check it out in this book. World of Warcraft, the Ultimate Visual Guide. Now I'll show you just a really quick look at a random page inside, but you can see how they've laid out so this area, right? So there's a location, tons of great pictures, different layouts, histories. They go through the actual history of Azeroth, timelines, things like that. This is a great resource, big current resource for me, especially on how I want to approach and how I want to design the lore in that setting. The sort of new World of Ice and Fire book for Song of Ice and Fire. This lays out the histories and locations of Westeros. Again, this is one that I have not finished yet, but I've started and I'm loving it so far. So as you can see by those last few books, those are really good books on how to world build. You can look in there and see what things are they talking about, and then go straight into your world and design those things. Because a lot of times with world building, it's where do I start? Well, where do they start? They start with a timeline, or they start with a history of the capital maybe, something like that. So we're going to finish up with a quick tour of the bookshelf, and I'll be right back. So I promised you a closer look at the PhD&D bookshelf. Just for sources of inspiration, as you can see, I've got The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings right there. Song of Ice and Fire series. The first 6 or 10 books in the Drizzt series. Then we got some Ed Greenwood, Dragonlance you can see there. And a lot of these I have not finished, and some of them I have not even started. I have not started the Elminster Ascending But Terry Brooks, Warcraft, Archive. Of course, there's some missing books that I'm going over one by one in the video. Then you've got some 5th edition gear, the Kobold Guide to World Building. Then you've got, of course, the awesome Pathfinder Game Mastery Guide, some older books, the Holy Adventure Creation Binder, some old Dragon magazines that I get in my local store, Brandon Sanderson novels. I'm currently reading The Way of Kings. Some Sword and Sorcery, it's an anthology, a bunch of stories in there. Journey into the Flame, I've not started yet. Of course, H.P. Lovecraft. Warded Man, have not started. Robert Jordan's Eye of the World. And then Dragon Masters, I got this at a very old bookstore. We come down to the good old 4th edition shelf. As you can see, almost all the 4th edition books here. Some modules and things on the end. And the final shelf, Stephen King's The Eyes of the Dragon. Have not started that one yet. Broken Sword, Narnia. This is a favorite series of mine as a kid. The Broken Sky series by Chris Wooding, 1 through 7. And just some other random books. You can see some Ray Bradbury there. He's one of my favorite authors. So that's the bookshelf. That's going to have most of the books relevant to D&D. I've got a lot of other books, but they really don't play in as much as those ones do. So that is your first tip in the world building series, is get inspired. Find those things. Find enough stuff where you could do a video like this where you go through all the things that inspire you and just start absorbing those ideas and start to get the gears really working for the world building. Then come back and we will see you in the next world building video. Brainstorming. Thank you for watching. Have a great week of gaming, everyone.